Hello everyone, my name is Jacob Snow, and this is my first video for this course. I'm super excited to be here, super excited to be learning more about history, and the topic for this discussion board is actually one that I think about regularly, which is why is the history of Western civilizations important? And this is not only a very good question to be asking, but it's also a question that's exceptionally relevant in our recent times because Western civilization is kind of a byword in scholarly circles. Now, what's the reason for this? Why would you go after Western civilizations? Well, to be honest, it's because there are a lot of things in the history of Western civilizations that, by their nature, are inherently offensive and very unpleasant to look at. For instance, the Western Hemisphere, you're seeing the conquest of South America, which is violent and imperialistic and not very fun to look at. You're seeing meteoric inequality between uh, different groups of people from, looking into different paradigms and such, like everyone does these days, looking at it from a gender history, looking at it from an ethnic history. Western civilization has had its share of dings, and it's been a wild ride. It's been a wild couple hundred years. However, to take that wildness, to take that unpleasantness, to take that ugliness, and go, you know what? We're just going to pretend it didn't happen. Kind of hope it goes away. To do that will eventually be the same as saying it just didn't happen. And that's why, to me, the history of Western civilization is important, is because looking back, looking at the unpleasant things that have happened in the past, unpleasant interactions between one group of people and another group of people, that introduces several important concepts. For one thing, it introduces to us that we weren't always right, and indeed, in many instances, we weren't always the good guys. All one really has to do is just look at the ways the Native American tribes were treated before, during, and after the American Civil War to look at in Western civilization's history and go, dang, this is an unpleasant mess. But and all too often, even in textbooks, even in college level textbooks, I've seen it's not really mentioned because, well, it's unpleasant, it's offensive. What does it really add to the wider narrative? We can just kind of sweep it away. And so, sorry, what we have happened then is as we learn about the history of our nation, the treatment of the natives, the treatment of women, the treatment of minorities, as well, the treatment of minorities and the mistreatment of women has not gone anywhere in any textbook I've ever read. But the treatment of the natives is usually kind of glanced over, like, yeah, we did bad things. Anyhow, moving on is because it's a very unpleasant picture to look at. But George Satayama said something that is very relevant here. He said that those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And see, here's the thing. To utilize this example that we've been using with the natives, let's say that it continues to be ignored, it continues to be looked away from because it's unpleasant, and indeed with the rest of Western civilization. Given enough time of it being avoided, kind of being a subject that we don't really talk about, and it's avoided in colleges across the United States, what was like major universities turning down massive donations that normally would have been accepted because, nope, sorry, it has to do with Western civilization, and we don't do that here because it's not pretty, it's not kind to look at. But if you give that enough time with that logic, what you're going to see happen is eventually it will be forgotten. It'll be forgotten that once upon a time we enslaved our brothers. It'll be forgotten that once upon a time um, land was forcibly taken away from individuals, or they were conned out of their belongings and continually penalized and chased from state to state until they were put in the barrenest, disgustingest place they could be found for. It'll be forgotten. And then it'll happen again. Because the thing is that with a knowledge of history comes accountability, comes the inability to ignore what you've done. Um, I admit that, for instance, equality has not always been a primary focus in my country. However, as time has gone by, we have learned, and equality has begun growing more, in part because of the fact that we don't pretend it didn't happen. Now, am I saying that we should overcompensate and make things unequal in the opposite direction? No, that's mistaken thinking. That's just not a good idea at all, because that just takes the problem, kind of changes the direction it's pointing, but the problem still remains. Inequality is always an issue, regardless of who it's pointed at. But the thing is I see when I look out and when I talk with people today, as a historian who is versed in Western history, know that things have come a long way. These people can walk in the same store as me. They can buy the same things as me. They can talk about their opinions, just like me. Because I know how bad it was, I also know how far it has come, and I can also see how far it still has to go. If we forget that it was bad, we don't see the problems that are in front of us currently. And if we don't see the problems that are in front of us currently, nothing will ever get any better. And I don't want to see the things that are contained in the dark, lurid tomes of Western history repeated. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that happen. And I don't want to see it forgotten. And I don't want it to become a thing that never happened. You guys were always like this. Because see, the thing is if we erase the bad, we erase the good that happened afterward. If we erase slavery, we don't see the equality that comes later. Because, and while there's still journey to go still on that topic, if the existence of that inequality in history is forgotten, eventually it would be possible to say, but it was always this way. There was never a civil rights movement. That's a myth. That's why Western history is important, is because it doesn't let the good people feel despair at all of the badness that they see now, and it doesn't let the evil people get away with pretending that badness never happened. And it doesn't let people who are bigoted, who are prejudiced, create a world in which that behavior is acceptable again, because we have a long storied history of, well, yeah, but that shouldn't have happened the first time either. It never happened before. Yeah, it did, and this is when, this is the date, this is who was involved, etc., etc. We can't just go, this history is too offensive to be taught and just kind of brush it away because it makes people look unpleasant. That's the point of history, is to show us where we were and to help us see where we are now. And to me, America started in an interesting way. It started off well. We kind of went on some bad tracks, and it divided us, and that division still exists today, and it shouldn't, because it's over now. There are racist people everywhere, not just in the South. And yet, still, again, many textbooks, here we go. It's all about predispositions and everything like that. And yes, there is still badness in this world, but it's nowhere near the level it was in the past, which allows us as humans to look up to the heavens and thank God that he's helping us at least do a little bit better and be happy, because we can see that we as a people have in many times of our history drawn close to God, and he has guided us through the darkness and into a better, brighter place. Now, is everything perfect? Again, no. But pretending that the badness in the past didn't happen won't fix the present, and it'll only create a worse future. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the week, and I look forward to doing more of these. God bless.